Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we're going to be reacting to foodandwine.com's The Best Coffee Shops in Every State list. So I saw this on a couple of coffee roasters' Instagram stories, actually coffee shops' Instagram stories, and I decided to react to this as I've been to 45 out of 50 states in the United States, and I want to kind of give my favorite coffee shop in each city and see what Food and Wine picked for theirs. Now, given that there are 50 states, this is going to be a pretty long video, so I'm going to kind of speed through this as quickly as possible, and let's go ahead and start with number one, which is Alabama. And my pick would either be Revelator or Seeds, probably Revelator because I was a little bit more impressed by the coffee shop itself. So let me go ahead and take a look what they have, and they picked Domestic Coffee. And it looks like it's based out of Birmingham, and that's a coffee shop that I have never been to, so I don't have too much familiarity with it. Let's see here if it lists whether or not they're a local roaster or a multi-roaster. Doesn't specify on here, so I wouldn't be able to offer an opinion on that. So we'll continue. Alaska, that's one of the few states I have actually never been to, so I don't have an opinion on this one. But let's see what they picked, and it is Uncle Leroy's Coffee. Let's see here. Looks like started roasting in a frying pan, so I'm guessing that's a local roaster, and again, don't have too many thoughts or opinions on them, so we will move on. Arizona, there are a number of coffee shops in Arizona I really liked, but probably my pick would be Press, as they have a location that's huge and had so many offerings, and I liked the coffee too, so Press is probably going to be my pick. And they picked, it looks like Futuro. And Futuro is a coffee shop I did go to when I was out there, and it looks like they're a multi-roaster. So I remember liking the coffee shop. I don't remember what I had or too much about it. There is a review up on this channel of us out in Futuro. So yeah, I can probably agree with that. I remember liking so many of their coffee shops, and Futuro was one of them. So we'll move on. Arkansas, now as much as I want to say a place like Airship, just to kind of be a contrarian, the answer has to be Onyx, as they've sunk so much money into their Airship or Arsagas, but Onyx has sunk so much money into their coffee shops, and their giant coffee shop is really impressive, so it has to be Onyx, and of course the pick is Onyx, which isn't too surprising, and they do mention their headquarters, and yeah, I mean, of course it was always going to be Onyx. California, and Dayglow is one of the coffee shops that I saw list this article on there, so I know Dayglow is going to be on here, but let's take a look at what they have to say. And actually they have Kumquat listed on here, and Dayglow as well, Hopper and Burr. It looks like they have quite a few, and Scorpio Coffee. And if I remember correctly, we went out to Document Coffee, which is another coffee shop I really liked out there. They're both multi-roasters. That's why I like Dayglow. They offer so many international coffee roasters as being a multi-roaster, and Document was the same way. But I've never been to Kumquat, which is out of Los Angeles. That's interesting, because I've been to Los Angeles a number of times, so I don't know if they're newer. But Hopper and Burr, I've never been to, and Scorpio Coffee, I've never been to. So yeah, but Dayglow I completely agree with. So we'll move on. Colorado, the only answer for Colorado has to be Sweet Bloom, and I see a photo of Sweet Bloom right here, so of course the answer is going to be Sweet Bloom, and yes, it's Sweet Bloom. And they go the Westminster location, which I've been to. I don't agree with. For me, it's the OG location in Lakewood, but I have years and years of experience drinking coffee at that specific location, as I'm originally from Colorado, and I started going almost immediately after they opened, and I've been impressed with them for a number of years. One of my favorite coffee shops in the entire world. And they do mention on here, yeah, it's around the corner from Casa Bonita, and yeah, of course, it has to be Sweet Bloom. It's changed so much over the years. But let's keep moving on. Connecticut, and there's that coffee shop I went to in New Haven that I purchased a box of La Cabra's coffees from. I don't remember what it was called, but let's take a look at what they have listed on here for Connecticut, and it's Give Coffee out of Canton. I've never been to Canton, so I have never been to this coffee shop, but yeah, I really wouldn't have an opinion on this one. Don't know. Let's see here. Multi-roaster doesn't specify if it's a multi-roaster or a local roaster. Country's most thoughtful roaster, so it is a multi-roaster, so I can agree with that. Let's continue moving on. Delaware, and the answer for me has to be Brouhaha, which is a storefront for Brandywine's coffees. So let's see what they have listed on here. And they have Brouhaha listed on here, and I mentioned that Brandywine's an interesting coffee roaster, and I guess it's not too surprising. Brouhaha was the only coffee shop I saw when I was out there that seemed like a more modern coffee shop to begin with, so I'll completely agree with this. We'll move on to Florida, and Panther's probably my pick, but I don't have too much experience drinking Florida coffee, so let's see what they have listed on here. Maine or Mane Coffee in Boca Raton. I've never been to Boca Raton. And Compelling Coffee, which which is out of West Palm Beach. I've never been to West Palm Beach either, so I've never been to either of those two cities. So yeah, Panther's probably my pick, but never been to either of those two coffee shops. Georgia, I think my pick would be East Pole Coffee, and there's a multi-roaster inside of a food hall that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. There are a couple of multi-roasters out in Atlanta that I liked. So let's see what they have listed on here. Gilly Brew Bar, and where is it? Stone Mountain? Okay, I don't even know where Stone Mountain is, but yeah, I have a number of coffee shops out in Atlanta I liked. So don't know about this coffee shop. We'll move on. Hawaii, one of the few states I have not been to, so I don't have an opinion on Hawaii, but let's see what they have listed on here anyway. Kona Coffee, that's a funny name for a coffee shop out in Hawaii, but yeah, don't know about it, so we'll just move past that. Idaho, and I've been to Idaho a couple of times. I've been to Boise most specifically, and I have never stopped there for coffee because I could not find a coffee shop that sounded interesting to me. So let's see what they have listed on here. Slow by Slow Coffee, and it's a multi-roaster. So, wow, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if they're newer or if they've been around for a while, but last time I was in Boise was, I want to say 2018, maybe before that, and I just couldn't find a coffee shop that I wanted to go to. So maybe next time I'm in Boise, Slow by Slow is an option for me. Illinois, my pick is the same as it was for California. It has to be Dayglow because they recently opened a location in Chicago. And let's see what they picked here. Dayglow, yeah, completely 100% agree with that. As mentioned earlier, they're such an impressive multi-roaster for the amount of international offerings that they do have. Indiana, I don't have a favorite coffee shop in Indiana. I've been to Indiana a couple of times, but let's see what they have listed on here. Amberson Coffee and Grocers, and it's based out of Indianapolis. So I don't know if they're a multi-roaster or a local roaster. It doesn't specify on here either, but yeah, I actually would not know, so we'll continue past that. Iowa. I've been to Iowa, never stopped for coffee in Iowa, so another state I don't have an opinion on. And let's see what they have listed on here. Horizon Line Coffee, and it looks like it's in Des Moines. Does it specify whether or not they're local or a multi-roaster? I don't see it on here, so yeah, we'll continue moving on. Kansas. My pick for Kansas would be PT's. I really liked the coffee shop when I was out there, so let's see what they have listed on here. Leslie Coffee Co. And where's Leslie? It's based out of Wichita? Okay. Yeah, I've never been to Wichita, so I actually would not know. But yeah, we'll keep on moving. Kentucky. My pick for Kentucky would be Quills, and let's see what they have listed on here. Please and Thank You, which serves Good Folks Coffee. And I've heard of Good Folks, and I've been to a couple of coffee shops in Kentucky, but I don't recall if this was one of them. So I don't know if this would be a pick, but Quills would have been my pick. So we'll keep moving on past this. And Louisiana. And there's a coffee shop I really like out in Louisiana. I believe it's called Spitfire. If that's the one that's in the French Quarter, that's a multi-roaster, then that's my favorite coffee shop in New Orleans. It was a really cool coffee shop. I really like the location too. Very tiny. But let's see what they have listed on here for Louisiana. Mammoth Espresso in the Warehouse District of New Orleans. It's entirely possible I went there. I think I went there. But Spitfire was the one that stood out to me, if that's the coffee shop I'm remembering. So, yeah, don't know what Mammoth is. Compelling Roasters in town. So they're a local roaster, so it's entirely possible I actually have not been there. So we'll continue moving on. Maine, my pick is Tandem out of Portland. Let's see what they have listed on here. Little Woodfords. And I've never been to that coffee shop, which is interesting. So yeah, difference of opinion on that one. We'll continue moving past that. Maryland, my pick is easily Ceremony. So let's see what they have listed on here. Sophomore Coffee in Baltimore. It's in Baltimore too. It was opened back in 2019. Okay, so that makes sense because I have not been to... Actually, I have been to Baltimore since 2019. I just never heard of Sophomore Coffee, but I mean, my eyes were focused on Ceremony, as Ceremony did give Sweet Bloom kind of its foundation. Andy originally worked at Ceremony Coffee, and I do like Ceremony's coffees too, so yeah, I don't know about Sophomore, but if they're better than Ceremony, then, you know, that's a really appealing prospect. Massachusetts, my pick would be George Howell, and the reason for it being George Howell is I really liked the coffee shops themselves. They felt very classy. So let's see what they have listed on here. Grace Note. I actually have a couple listed on here. Grace Note, Tiny Arms Coffee and Ceramics, and Kid Dream Coffee. So Grace Note, I have actually reviewed one of Grace Note's coffees on this channel, and I have been out to their coffee shop, and I haven't loved the coffee, but I really appreciated the customer service that they gave me out at Grace Note. They were such wonderful baristas and such great people that I have nothing but positive things to say about the coffee shop itself, so I can agree with them in that sense, even if they're not my favorite coffee roaster. Michigan, there's only one answer to Michigan, and it has to be Madcap, so let's see what they have listed on here. Anthology Coffee, interesting. Detroit, I have been to Detroit. Oh, but Langford and Anthology Coffee. I'm still kind of surprised that it's not Madcap. I mean, Madcap's so iconic, especially for Michigan coffee, but yeah, I guess I'll look into Anthology in the future. Minnesota, my pick would be Dogwood. I would also be okay with Spy House. I have been out to Minneapolis for coffee specifically, so let's see what they have listed on here. Wesley Andrews, and I've heard about Wesley Andrews more recently, but I've never tried any of their coffee. It seems like they're becoming a little bit more prominent at this point. If they're better than Dogwood and Spy House, and probably a pretty decent coffee roaster, so I'll look into them, maybe hopefully review them sometime in the near future. Mississippi, I've only been to kind of the outskirts of Mississippi, so places like Biloxi and northern Mississippi, so I don't have a favorite coffee shop out there. Let's see what they have listed on here. Native, and they have listed on here, looks like it's a spinoff from Black and White, and Black and White would be my pick for North Carolina, so if that's the case, then probably is a pretty decent coffee roaster, I'm guessing. Yeah, interesting. Maybe next time, I don't know if I'll ever go back to Mississippi, but if I am, then I'll look into it. Missouri, I have a couple of coffee shops I really like in Kansas City, but my pick would probably be Blueprint. So let's see what they have listed on here. Monarch. And I wonder if that's one of the coffee shops I went out to in Kansas City. Let's see here. It is in Kansas City off Broadway Boulevard. So there's probably a pretty strong chance I went. I just don't recall it. There were so many coffee shops in Kansas City I did like that I just don't remember the names of. And Monarch, it's entirely possible that was one of them, but still, Blueprint's probably my pick. Montana, I've never been to Montana, so we'll see what they have here. And it's Ebon Coffee Collective. And I'm guessing it's probably a local roaster they source from a local coffee roaster. And that's not too surprising. I mean, Montana has a very small population, and I can't imagine there's too big of a coffee scene out there. Very kind of cowboy sort of area, and that would indicate a more developed profile. Nebraska, my pick without question is going to be Archetype. And let's see what they have listed on here. Archetype, yes. And I've had a number of Archetype's coffees over the years, and I really like a lot of the things I've had from them, so that is a definite winner for me. I've actually never been out to their coffee shop, but if their coffee shop is any reflection of how good their coffee is, then that one is definitely a yes for me. Nevada. I've been to Nevada so much. It's probably the state I've been to maybe the fourth most in my life because of Las Vegas, but I don't like any coffee that I've ever had in Nevada, so let's see what they picked. Darkmoon Coffee Roasters, and it looks like it's in Henderson, so it's pretty close to Las Vegas. I've just never heard of it or never been. My issue has always been that I felt like the water in that part of the country is just kind of really bad, so it's kind of difficult to make really good coffee. But if Darkmoon is supposed to be pretty good, then I'm kind of curious, and next time I'm out there, I'll see about trying Darkmoon's coffee. All right, New Hampshire. I don't think I have a favorite coffee shop in New Hampshire. New Hampshire also really small, so let's see what they have listed on here. Wayfair Coffee Roasters and Horseshoe Cafe, so they have a couple of coffee shops listed on here. I have not heard of either of them, so yeah, will be interesting if I'm in New Hampshire. We'll try them out. New Jersey, and I don't think I have a favorite out in New Jersey that I can think of, so let's take a look. One up and one down in Trenton. I've never been to Trenton. Let's see here. Experienced roaster, so I'm guessing that they're their own coffee roaster too. Okay. Yeah, interesting. We'll move on. New Mexico, I don't have a favorite coffee shop out in New Mexico. Even though I've been to New Mexico a couple of times, I've never stopped there for coffee. So let's see what they have listed on here. Cutbow Coffee, and I've heard of Cutbow Coffee, but I've never been. It seems like it's always kind of been a little out of my way. I've spent all my time in Albuquerque when I have been in New Mexico, so next time I will have to see about trying them out. All right, New York, I already know the answer is Say, because Say was one of the other places I saw the Instagram story listing as the best coffee shop in the state. And I completely agree with that. Say is a little bit of a divisive coffee roaster as a whole, but 128 different coffee offerings in 2021. I've heard that before, and that is a mind-blowingly impressive number for any coffee roaster. Not all of them have been impressive. I've had some coffees from them I really don't like, and I've had some coffees from them I absolutely adored. But I think that they're a really good coffee roaster, my personal preference, so I will agree with that 100%. North Carolina, my pick is either going to be Black and White or is the name of the coffee shop Jubala, I believe. Let's see what they have listed on here. Orchard Coffee. I have not heard of it. I wonder where Orchard Coffee is out of. Actually, now that I think about it, there's Hex out of Charlotte. I'm just thinking of Raleigh, but Hex would have been another pick that I would have been okay with. I really liked Hex's coffee shop, actually. They're out of Waynesville in the Smoky Mountains. Now that I think about it, was Hatchet out of the Smoky Mountains as well. I know Hatchet is, I believe, in North Carolina too. So there are a number of coffee shops that are pretty decent for North Carolina, but I've never heard of Orchard, so we'll move on. North Dakota, I've never been to North Dakota, another really small population state. Youngblood Coffee, guessing that they're probably a local roaster, downtown Fargo. Yeah, I won't have an opinion on that or them. Ohio. Ooh, that'll be interesting. Since one of my really good coffee friends is from Ohio, he's given me so many opinions of Ohio coffee. But I don't have a favorite specifically. We'll see what they have listed on here. Is that Mom and M's Coffee and Wine? So that one's never been mentioned to me. And that's the only one that they have listed on here. So, I mean, I've heard of a bunch of coffee roasters from out in Columbus, and I'll probably be reviewing them. I've had Mission, but I've mixed feelings on Mission, and there are no other coffee roasters out there that really stand out to me. So we'll move past this one. Oklahoma, there's a number of them. I mean, you can think of Cirque. What was the one I really liked? Starts with an E, I believe. Man, there were actually quite a few coffee shops in Oklahoma that I really, really liked, but maybe Cirque is my pick. We'll see what they have on here. Clarity Coffee Co. And where's it based out of? Oklahoma City? Are they the ones that serve Killer? Because whichever coffee shop is the one that serves Killer is probably my favorite coffee shop now that I think about it, but I think it might be Clarity, actually. I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to act like I do know, but whichever coffee shop is the one that serves Killer, I think it might be Clarity, would actually be my pick. So I would actually agree with that. Oregon, one of my 3 states that I have the most familiarity with coffee. My pick is Roseline, but I would be stunned if their pick was Roseline. Or actually, it's either Roseline or Proud Mary, because I'm really impressed with the amount of offerings that Proud Mary has, but I like Roseline's coffees better. So let's see what they picked. Good Coffee. Ooh, I disagree with that. There's so many amazing coffee shops in Portland. I would have been okay with any of the Covas as well. Heart I would have been okay with and stuff, but I'm not the biggest fan of Good Coffee. So I strongly disagree with this one right here. Again, my pick is going to be Roseline, but to each their own. Pennsylvania, without question, my pick has to be Passenger. Passenger is one of my favorite coffee roasters in the world. Their Lancaster Cafe is one of my 5 favorite coffee shops in the entire world. Yes, 110% agree with that. It has to be Passenger. There is no other acceptable answer. The one right outside of that public market, 100% yes, easily. All right, Rhode Island. I don't have a favorite coffee shop in Rhode Island. Let's see what they picked here. Simple Merchant Coffee. Don't know about that one. Don't have any familiarity with it, so we'll move on. South Carolina, actually, my pick is going to be Second State Coffee. I really liked the coffee shop itself. I know that they have Methodical is out in South Carolina, and it's a cool coffee shop too. I'm okay with either of those two, but I really liked the coffee shop Second State, so we'll see what they picked. Sightsee, interesting. I have not heard of that one. I wonder where they're based out of. Charleston, and I have been to Charleston, so hadn't heard of that one. Or actually, is it based out of Charleston? I'm just trying to run through this as well. They do mention Methodical in Greenville. They do have some really nice coffee roasters out in South Carolina, but Sightsee is one I'm not familiar with. So we'll move past that. South Dakota, another state I've never been to, so that's why I don't have any familiarity with it. The Breaks Coffee Roasting Co. Yeah, don't know, so we'll move on. Wow, this video is already 20 minutes long, so we'll try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. Tennessee, There are a number of coffee shops out in Tennessee I really like. None of them are coming to my mind right off the top of my head. Vice and Virtue. So I not recently, but within the past year, I've reviewed one of their coffees, and it was a very interesting coffee. So I could probably agree with that, as I can't think of any of the other coffee shops that stand out right now. Texas. Back in the day, it was probably Evocation out in Amarillo, but Evocation's been gone for a number of years, so I don't think I have a top pick off the top of my head. Let's see what they have listed on here. Try Hard Coffee Roasters. Never had them. There's CBD mentioned. All right. Let's see here. They also have Parterie Coffee. Yeah, don't have any familiarity with either of us two. There are a number of decent coffee shops and coffee roasters in Texas, as you'd imagine. Texas is really big. But we'll continue on. Utah, there's that coffee shop. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I mean, I'm just trying to run through this real quick. But Three Pines Coffee, I can agree with that 100%. I actually went to Three Pines at their original location a long time ago, and they serve heart. I don't know if it's listed on here or if they still do serve heart. Yeah, they're mentioning here from Portland as well. But it was one of the first places I ever had heart in my entire life, and I remember it very well, and I had a very long conversation with the owner of that coffee shop. It's really nice to see Three Pines, that they're still around. This was a long time ago, so yes, I agree with that. I'll actually take that over whatever I had. La Barba, I believe, is the other name I was thinking of. Vermont, I can't think of any place off the top of my head. Abracadabra Coffee Co. Not mentioning on here whether or not they're a local or multi-roaster. Virginia, there are a couple of coffee shops in Virginia I liked, but let's see here. Blanchard's, yes, that's my pick, actually. Blanchard's was my favorite. I completely agree with that. Let's keep going. Washington. So my favorite coffee shop in the state of Washington is Sound and Fog. There are a number of other ones. I mean, Washington is my state. So what else would I accept? Narrative is really nice. Root is probably an underrated coffee shop that they're newer too, but there are so many coffee shops. I'm dying to see what they have listed on here. Vivace, Victrola, Herkimer. We have Second Wave, and Victrola and Herkimer aren't even the best coffee roasters in the city of Seattle themselves. 110% disagree with this. Victrola is a really cool coffee shop, don't get me wrong. I don't love Herkimer's coffee shops. I would have accepted Analog. Man, I could probably list 10 or so coffee shops that I like better than those. Espresso Vivace, it's a very specific sort of person that likes their coffee. And again, mentioned it's kind of second wave. Yeah, I just disagree with that. That's a little upsetting. All right. West Virginia. I don't have a favorite out in West Virginia. Let's see what they have listed on here. Mountaineer Roasting Co. Never had them. We'll move on. Wisconsin. A lot of coffee roasters and coffee shops I could pick from here. I like Ruby, even though they're pretty developed. I think Hickapoo renamed themselves Wonder State. But JBC has to be my pick because I have so much long history with JBC. And Ruby. Okay, I can deal with that. Up in Nelsonville. Yeah. I mentioned Ruby. They were the first place I mentioned, first place I came to mind. But JBC I just have really long history with, and that's why I picked JBC. Wyoming. I mean, I had to drive through Wyoming a bunch of times, but I've never stopped there for coffee. Overview Coffee. Okay, and that's it. That's the end of the list. Yeah, this is a very long video, so I'll just kind of wrap this up. As you can see, I agree with a lot of this list. There are some things I strongly disagree with, but for the most part, they got a lot of the really important ones right. Passenger, Sweet Bloom, Say, Dayglow. I can agree with those things. And there are some things I picked up from this list that I would want to try myself. So hopefully you found this video interesting and you picked something up from it, but I'm going to leave this at that. If you enjoyed this video, give this one a like. Let me know if you want to see more of these kind of reaction videos in the future. If you're new to the channel, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a reaction to foodandwine.com's The Best Coffee Shops Across America list. Thank you for watching.